Thank you. I gotta confess, I'm actually pretty new at this teaching thing. I've only been doing it a few years, but I know I've still got a lot to learn. However, I also know that I know now a lot more than I knew a few years ago when I was getting ready to face my first ever classroom alone. I didn't know where I was going to find my voice as a teacher, and I didn't know what I was going to do to find it. I was in Los Angeles at the University of Southern California as a grad student, and let me tell you, LA is a strange place. It's a strange place to be a teacher. I assisted classes that included the children of the Incredible Hulk and the Terminator. I'm the son of a traveling salesman and a church secretary. I had students tell me that they were going to miss class because they had to take their movie to Sundance next week. And one time I showed this 90s TV commercial in class to talk about media stereotypes, and this student goes, that kid in the commercial, that's me. What was I going to say to kids like this? I'd been working in the advertising industry making up names for salad dressings. But I came to realize that every one of us, all of you, have lived a life on this planet. We've all had friends and family and experiences and have a rich resources of material that we can draw on to find our voice. You just have to look around a little bit sometimes. I ended up looking at drag queens. And not the pretty kind. When I was graduating college in Chicago, I fell in with a group of actors and writers and musicians called Gerline and Gerlette Hussey's Hussey Fire Review. Now, these were not female impersonators. There's a whole lot of different kinds of drag, and this was a kind of drag called gender funny. It wasn't about trying to impersonate the opposite sex. It was about taking gender roles and stereotypes and mixing them up to try and get people to think critically, kind of like teaching. Doug played Gerline, the smart one, a skinny, hairy, working-class feminist from Altoona, Pennsylvania. And Randy played Gerlette, the pretty one, a portly, tattooed, pierced southerner who had Tourette syndrome. You always knew that Randy was around because you could hear him beeping and making these uncontrollable sounds, except when he was on stage. He discovered a different voice in front of people. There was also Joan Jett Black, who was a bodybuilder that sang classic rock and was running for mayor of Chicago. Marcy Duncan was this matronly activist who would sing inspirational songs through her belly button. There were women who sang Lynyrd Skynyrd and Wayne Newton, and none of us were trying to be anything that we weren't. Randy never shaved his beard, and Doug, he would perform sometimes in a see-through lace body stocking with nothing underneath. It was a look that one critic said resembled a squirrel caught in a screen door. Me, I played boys. Boys who fell in love with drag queens. Boys who were covered head to toe in glow-in-the-dark body glitter. Boys who built a portable disco out of a Christmas tree lamp. Boys who danced around stage in white linen suits with exploding blood bags underneath. Strange boys. Honestly, I'm not sure what I was thinking all the time. But I did realize that if I can get up on stage in front of a bar full of drunk Chicagoans dressed like Tom Cruise in Risky Business wearing my underwear and disco dancing to ABBA while they're screaming out for me to get off stage and die, then I can handle a room full of 19-year-olds. Because drag queens taught me a lot about teaching and a lot of things that I use today. Here's 5 things they taught me. First off, you are gorgeous. Now, I don't mean you have a pretty face or a sexy body. I mean that every individual, each one of us, is amazing in their own unique ways. You just have to find that, to own it, and be fearless about putting it out there. Be fierce. Now, this doesn't mean to be arrogant or to act like a diva, and a lot of queens get this wrong. It means discovering your tea, your truth, your authenticity, your realness, because the real being of any human is always a gorgeous thing. There was this queen I knew in Seattle named Peggy. Peggy was about 50 years old, not very pretty, poor, in a wheelchair, and missing one leg. But Peggy would roll that chair up on stage in her crooked wig from the Goodwill, and the DJ would play her song, and she'd just move her head and her hands to the music. Peggy was a hot mess. But Peggy was fearlessly authentic. And a teacher has to be authentic and honest as well, because students can smell anything else a mile away. You have to be real and honest to yourself, and that's always gorgeous. Second, you better work. A drag queen's got to grab your attention and not let go. Jackie was another drag queen in Seattle, and Jackie was deaf, and y'all are going to hear a great presentation later on about the deaf community. But some of the other queens one night decided to play a joke on Jackie, and they turned off her music in the middle of her song. Well, of course, she didn't notice initially, but then she started to pick up on changes in the audience and realize that something was wrong. But that didn't stop Jackie. She performed that song till the very last note in dead silence. A teacher's got to work the room too. Just like at a drag show, you've got an audience full of people who have all paid money to come there and see you, or their parents have, and either way, you owe them their money's worth. And that being said, it's not all about you, honey. A good drag show isn't about the drag queens. A good one is about how the queens connect to the people in the audience and the things that matter to them. Gerline and Gerlette were doing shows in the early part of the AIDS crisis, and they would talk about safe sex demonstrations, raise money for AIDS service organizations, encourage people to get tested. Randy was always totally upfront about his HIV positive status right up until he died. He would joke that he had so few T cells left, he had given them all their own name. Good drag is always funny, but never just funny. It has to connect to people's lives. And good teaching is the same way. It's not just about dishing out facts and information and theories, it's about connecting those things to real students' lives. And to do that, you got to work with what God gave you. A drag queen has to make creative use of the materials at hand. I saw a guy take his false teeth and play them like castanets. Jean Genet writes about drag queens in prison using wet magazine ads to rub on their face for makeup. And I knew this female drag queen in Seattle that made one dress out of feed sacks and another dress out of a quilted mattress. A teacher has to do the same thing, to make creative use out of the materials at hand. So this means not only bringing into the classroom everything from social media like Facebook and Pinterest to good old-fashioned chalk, but it also means bringing in the students, their lives, their community, their experience, other instructors, business leaders, community organizations, bringing them in so that the material you're talking about matters. In my classes, I teach new media and communication technologies, but we talk about things that range from faith and football to contra dancing and the upstate textile industry, because these are all part of the amazing resources and material we have to work with here. But ultimately, there's no tips in an empty room. A drag queen has to be outrageous, but not so outrageous that the audience walks out and leaves. Gerline and Gerlette did a Christmas show one year, and we performed that holiday classic of sympathy for the less fortunate, Do They Know It's Christmas? Remember, it was the fundraiser charity song for the starving in Ethiopia? We performed it at the Christmas dinner table, having a food fight. It was rude and tacky, but we were making a point about how at the holidays it's easy to fall into cheap sentiment and platitudes. Drag queens have to be crazy, but not so crazy that they lose the audience. And teachers similarly have to challenge students. They have to be provocative, but not so much that you lose their trust. You want to maintain a security and a safety in the classroom so that students feel comfortable engaging and expressing their own voices. You want to challenge them with new ideas and unfamiliar provocative concepts, but not to change them. You want to do it to get them to think more deeply and connect more critically to their own thoughts and feelings and beliefs. We get to know ourselves better through encounters with the strange and the unfamiliar. And drag queens were pretty strange. But they taught me that I could find my voice in the most unexpected places. And they also taught me that the most important part of teaching wasn't just expressing my voice. And it wasn't just connecting the students to the voices of great people that came before us. It was helping them to find their own voice. When you come out of a good drag show, you feel empowered and alive and in touch with your own fierce fabulosity. And my dream for my students is that they'll come out of my classroom feeling similarly excited and alive and confident and in touch with articulating their own unique and fantastic voices. Thank you.